Never put a mic in front of this woman. Awesome.
Hello, ladies. How's it going?
Great.
I'm just waiting for Ivor and Ken and them to stop talking. Oh,
Drew?
they noticed us now. I got to get off. Yeah.
Go ahead and have a seat, gents.
Great talk. You silent? I remember to do that. Oh, God.
Ken agreed to dance and sing.
You first.
Wait, that wasn't in my contract. That's an extra fee. Just kidding.
All right, you guys
All right, no
ready?
questions. We're done.
Hi, my question is for Siobhan. I have chronic inflammation, but okay, can you hear me? Okay, this is really weird. Cryotherapy. They say it heals your body quicker and things like that. What are your thoughts on that?
So I would have to see research on it that actually showed that, show me the evidence for it. But as far as icing acute injuries, I've never seen any evidence showing it helps, only inhibits healing. I mean, that's what I've seen so far, so.
Okay, what about you, Drew? Because you do it, you showed it. What are your feelings?
Yeah,
on it?
mine's only, anecdotal evidence of me doing it. It could be the placebo effect, but for me, I do enjoy it. I do feel like it does something from what I've heard from other people. Tony Robbins is a big believer in it. A lot of athletes are doing it. So I started doing it, and for me, I noticed a big difference with my recovery. I don't have rheumatoid arthritis, though, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah, so that's my thing. Is it does help. It does feel good. Oh gosh, but is it really kind of just me throwing my money in the wind?
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
It's a good question. You guys see me sitting up here by Drew, I'm like. So if you've got the disposable income to do cryotherapy, do cryotherapy. But I would first and foremost focus on the foundation, the bedrock, which is food-o-therapy. And then if you've got time and money, do some cryotherapy. Yeah.
Cold showers, cold water plunges, that's free.
The other thing is it may not be as much of a big deal if there's not like an acute thing you're inhibiting. Like one thing they talk about quite often is inhibiting inflammation can be helpful for discomfort. So perhaps if there's, a large time space or a larger time space between exercise and a cold shower, then it may not be a big deal. I don't think we know.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's not so much to decrease inflammation, but to increase insulin sensitivity by thermogenesis.
Testing? Okay, great. So this is a question based off of something, Siobhan, you mentioned in your presentation very briefly. I think it was just a term you kind of threw out, and we haven't spoken about it all, I don't think, in the last 2 days, but the concept of deeper state ketosis, kind of going back to the root of it all, because we're all on Instagram and social media, and it's starting to become a lot of baked good recipes that are keto and kind of getting off track of where it all started, right? You look at the eggs and the meats and limited veg that aren't cruciferous. Has there been any research or any ideas on getting back to that DSK, that deeper state ketosis, your opinions on it as professionals in this field? How far we've gotten off track?
Yeah, so the only thing I meant by deeper state of ketosis was just a higher blood level of ketones. I don't think that necessarily means anything, like the level of ketones in the blood. Like glucose and triglycerides, it's an energy substrate, so higher levels could be indicative of kind of overflow. So higher triglycerides can be indicative of lower usage, things like that. Perhaps it might be useful to have a higher level for things like epilepsy or things where ketones are directly having an effect to fuel the brain, things like that. But yeah, I'm not sure as far as deeper state anything. I think any level of ketosis is pretty good.
I was off on that topic then, sorry. I think I was thinking about something, I don't have a scientific background, so I think what I was basing that on was what I was seeing in this social media space about getting back to the basics.
Like
So.
Keto Savage.
Keto brick all the way.
Yeah.
You guys got to bring him next year.
He's getting married, yes. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Getting back to the basics can be very helpful for a lot of people to get back on the wagon if you had some issues, or even just to identify possible problem foods. My general rule is if I eat something and it makes me want to eat more of it after eating it, I don't eat it anymore. And now I just eat meat, so.
I'll speak a little bit to that because I kind of see it happening in the industry. Anytime a diet becomes popular, there's going to be these convenience products that come along with it, which is good and bad, right? Because people could eat 5 keto cookies and keto donuts and keto cakes and be like, keto all day, right? But does that mean you're becoming healthier? I don't know, right? It might not be that way. You could drink Diet Coke and chug vegetable oil and stay in a state of ketosis, probably, but does that mean you're becoming healthier? Probably not. And that's why a whole foods approach will always be the best approach. But then, I don't think our ancestors knew about ketosis. Like, all right, I'm not going to eat those berries because that's going to kick me out of ketosis. That's only us in our day and time. But, fasting, right? That's the old school way of doing ketosis, just to stop eating and you'll be in a state of ketosis. So I think implementing some extended fasting once or twice a year, not just for the physical benefits, there's obvious physical benefits to extended fast, but there's a mental, emotional, and spiritual component to fasting as well that I think is overlooked sometimes. But I think that's kind of maybe something that we get back to as humans is the extended fasting, because everyone I know, when I grew up, it was 3 square meals a day. Don't skip a meal. Don't skip breakfast. Like, eat from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. That's what I did my whole life as an athlete, thinking this is how it's supposed to be. But anyone else?
We sure did pack you guys in there tight, huh? Yes, they're close.
Hi, I'm Lori.
Hi, Lori.
First of all, I just want to thank all of you for sacrificing your weekend to come and be here, because I've learned so much I've been doing keto for a little over 2 years, but we really appreciate it. We know what a sacrifice and how lucky we are here in Utah to have you guys come. What a great resource. I hear Chris and Miriam talk about how amazing you all are when they get to go to KetoCon and Keto Fest, and I'm jealous, but so I'm grateful you could come. This question I do have is for Drew. Do you feel like since you gained the weight that your training changed, because you know what a challenge it is for people who are heavier? I was 90 pounds heavier, and I know that working out was very intimidating when I was 300 pounds. Did you change the way you train people?
I did, and it totally changed my perspective of how I used to think, how hard can I push this person, push them to their limits. But now, having done my Fit to Fat to Fit experience and being humbled, right, to do push-ups on my knees and to move my body in a way that I was used to, it really opened up my eyes to give me a different perspective on exercise and how it's not a race to the finish line. I used to think it's all about this, how to lose as much weight as quickly as possible. So what exercises are going to do that? But if we have a long-term perspective in mind and realize that there is no race to the finish line with our health, and it's a journey, not a destination, it's changed my perspective on having to do these 3-hour-long workouts and, workouts that make you puke all the time. For me, I've totally changed my perspective on the type of exercises I even do now. And it used to be so focused on what exercises will give me this type of body, right? Versus what's the best way for my body to move in a functional way so that I can just be healthy as I grow up and my kids grow up. Yes, I like to look good on the outside, but I'm not as obsessed about it as I used to be in my workouts. If you see what I do, you'll be like, that's all you do? Like, people are really surprised that my 10-minute workouts are all I do. And sometimes
That's awesome.
That's what I do now.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm not sure who to ask, so whoever knows can let me know. My question is about thyroid. I have a little bit of a low thyroid, and I take Nature Throid, and I've been keto for about a year, and I'm hoping they'll actually heal my thyroid. Can I expect it to heal? Will my eyebrows grow back in? And will it just completely heal?
Yeah, great question. I have multiple patients with hypothyroidism, with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and I have seen virtually without exception that their thyroid numbers move in the correct direction with keto, with carnivore, with low carb. I have not seen anybody completely reverse or cure their hypothyroidism, but I have seen multiple patients be able to decrease their nature from 120 to 60 to 30, their armor or their nature, either one. But I have not seen anybody completely reverse their hypothyroidism.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you for your guys' talks today. My question is maybe for any of you, maybe those who have dealt or have dealt, quote, is it sugar addiction?
I'll start. I think there is 100% a thing known as sugar addiction, processed carb addiction, and I'm working on a YouTube video about that right now. Any 20-something with a six-pack on Instagram that tells you you just need to suck it up, buttercup, there's no such thing, you just need to, no, you can unfollow them right there because they do not know what they're talking about. And I think Drew spoke to this. You definitely felt addiction, didn't you? Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I used to be completely addicted, and yours was Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Mine was Lucky Charms. I could sit down and eat an entire box, but I used skim milk, so it was okay. Right? So yeah, don't let anybody tell you there's the brain lights up on a PET scan exactly the same, not as intense as taking a hit of cocaine, but the same exact centers of the brain light up on a PET scan. So there's no doubt that you are stimulating the pleasure centers of your brain when you eat the Lucky Charms or the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. There's no doubt. And so if you don't have enough pleasure in your life, with your relationships, with your job, with your future, whatever, then yeah, that's going to be very, very habit forming for you, and it sucks to break it. And I think Drew can talk about just how bad it sucks.
I'm curious to know why you asked that question.
I always called it addiction, and I would try to figure out if it's a mineral or a deficiency, or, you know, obviously I'm not getting nutrients eating a sugar-filled diet. And, you know, is it simply adding nutrition into my diet, meat, or like I thought of you, you know, it simply changed. You could not stop thinking about that cereal on the counter, and it changed your diet and approach.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple as, you know, but did you have something you want to say about addiction? Okay, really quickly. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it depends on your definition of addiction, but ask any person that has tried a diet why they can't stick to it, and it's because some type of emotional connection to the food that, you know, they can't overcome, and at least they can't overcome for the long term or stay consistent with. Just like someone trying to get off drugs or addicted to alcohol, it's very similar patterns, very similar, you know, symptoms. And so I did it firsthand. So for me, even for 6 months, just, you know, if you go back and watch my videos, you'll see just how hard it was to get off that food.
So I think it could definitely be multiple things. It could be vitamin or mineral deficiencies. It could be something that's in the hyper-processed carbohydrate that we eat that causes disrupted hormonal signaling and disrupted brain chemical stuff. It could also be, you know, any other number of things. It doesn't have to be just one thing. I definitely think food addiction exists and sugar addiction exists. I have a friend, Donna Lordy, who works with people who have struggled to lose weight and have, you know, not successfully done that, even with keto, even with surgery, even with any other number of potential, you know, tools that you can use. And a lot of the times it ties back to things like trauma or just an underlying addiction because something else is going on. So I think it could be multiple things.
So let's talk about the addiction. If you're addicted to alcohol and I take your alcohol away from you, what do you have? Withdrawal. And there are clinical symptoms of withdrawal. Body aches, mental fogginess, irritability, can't sleep, even nausea, even diarrhea. How many of you guys had those symptoms when you were trying to get rid of the carbs? That's addiction. You don't have, so I love bacon, but if you took my bacon away from me, I would miss bacon a lot, right? I might fight you for some bacon, but I would not have body aches, and I would not have nausea, and I would not have a headache from a bacon deficiency. Does that make sense? So I think there might be something to the mineral vitamin thing and the emotional thing, but when you have physical withdrawal symptoms because you stopped eating a certain food, there's nothing that could be but addiction. Physical addiction, not just mental addiction. It is a physical addiction, or you wouldn't have withdrawal symptoms.
Hi. I just want to say thank you again, like everybody said before, because this is awesome. This question is for Dr. Berry or anyone who feels like they can add something. Historically, I've had extremely low blood pressure, hospitalized in ICU multiple times, could never get to the bottom of it, never knew. Been keto 3.5 years-ish, and it is climbing. And the last conversation with my doctor, who was the one who recommended keto to me, was we're going to have to look at meds by your next blood work. And so is this something that's common for a certain percentage of the keto, people who change over, or is this an anomaly, or should I be looking at something else?
First thing we have to do is define hypertension. I don't care what your blood pressure is at your doctor's office. I could care less. I want you to have an upper arm blood pressure cuff at home. When you are calm and relaxed, you check your blood pressure and you write that down. What does that average at home when you check it?
It's been, the top number's been like 140, but they just changed the guidelines for what's considered high.
Yeah. Why do you think?
So that's why that just adds to
Yeah, so 140 over what on average at home when you're calm and chill?
78.
Are you worried about that, Dr. Nally? I'm not worried about that at all. Yeah, I would. Right. Well, I think, and it's very, very uncommon for people to have hypotension without some underlying syndrome. And you probably have one of those, and there's about 20 of them. But what keto has done is basically auto-regulated your blood pressure back up to a normal level for your age, which is what I find that keto does with almost every physiological marker that I've ever tested in a human. And so 140 over 70, congratulations, go be happy. Okay, but now when you go to your doctor's office, and this applies to everybody, if you go to your doctor's office and you're running late, and you got a ticket, and the chick up front is an ass, and when you get back and your blood pressure is 180 over 95, and they're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna have to put you on a blood pressure medicine," it's completely inappropriate. It's malpractice. It's ignorant. You need to be checking and in Europe, they don't even do it that way. They want to know, you bring a blood pressure log from home, and then they decide, do you have hypertension or not? No other country except the U.S., where we try to make billions of dollars selling pills, do we check your blood pressure in the office and then act like that means anything. It's meaningless. Okay, so you check it at home, keep up with the running average. That's the number you need to worry about. And if it's 140 over even 80, happy life to you. Good job. That's not medical advice. As Siobhan said.
Better listen to the boss lady.
Can we get security?
What's the worry number? Ask him.
Yes. What the question was, what is the worry number? Like, what's the, hey, I need to go get checked out?
I wouldn't worry about you at all. I'm assuming you're in your late 30s. I would not worry about you at all until you were 145 over 85. Routinely at home, at rest, calm and relaxed. If you're running that or higher, then we might talk about a medication for hypertension.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned this morning, based on Ivor's new book, Appendix E, I'm on a protocol to get off the seed oils for 3 weeks. So for the panelists, Drew and all, do you have any experience with clients or patients that have gotten off seed oils? And then for Ivor, if you have any updates on your research regarding the seed oils.
Definitely not a patient of mine, but Tucker Goodrich talks on this a lot. He's on Twitter, and I believe he has experience with removing seed oils alone, maybe before going low carb or something like that. So he has experience with that. You may want to get in contact with him.
Yeah, thanks, Siobhan. Yeah, I actually interviewed Tucker. So if you go on my podcast around 10 episodes back, there's a 2-hour podcast overwhelmingly on seed oils. So that's a great resource for anyone. And Tucker has gone really deep on this. And you're right, Siobhan, he went low carb and got lots of benefits. But one of his striking stories was that he had diarrhea, essentially bowel complaints, for around 15 years, to the point that he was used to taking toilet paper on all of his trips. And 2 days after eliminating seed oils, after research, and then actually cutting them completely from his diet, when he came to the conclusion this could be the really problematic component remaining in his diet, he was able to give up the toilet paper. And that was 10 years ago. So I think if you listen to that podcast, there's a wealth of information around the problematic nature of seed oils. Tucker has all the mechanisms as well. His blog goes through in great detail, HNE. And is there anything else interesting? There is another interesting one about seed oils that's anecdotal, but is coming back repeatedly now from all over the world. And it's something I noticed a few years ago. I went on a low-carb diet and cut the seed oil simultaneously because I was researching both simultaneously. But I found that I could go out in the sun with less burning to an incredible degree. And I'm an engineer, I roughly worked out I could go 2 to 2.5 times, possibly 3 times as much sun to get the same level of erythema. And I wondered about this. I did last year. I had a very mild tan, and I was in Texas in, I think it was August or September, and I was an hour and a half with a steel blue sky at noon, and I got a light pinking. But anyway, back to the story. So it's coming from all around the world, and Tucker saw it as well, many other people, a factor of 2 to 3 in time in the sun. And the biochemistry has been gone through by, who wrote Deep Nutrition? Kate Shanahan. And she goes through the biochemistry of it. And basically, an excess of omega-6 polyunsaturated oils in your cellular membrane interact with the UV in the sun and cause excessive inflammation. And I actually guessed that there was no real sunburn skin cancers excessively thousands of years ago. And one of the primary reasons was people were at less than 1% of omega-6 in their diet. Now they're at 10 to 15% on average.
In short, you are what you eat. That includes your cell membranes. That includes seed oils.
Your skin cells, just like every other cell in your body, will make themselves out of whatever fat you're eating. And so your skin cells will incorporate too many omega-6s just as quickly as they will omega-3s. And I am anecdotal as well as Ivor. I think he and I share some relatives back up the tree a few generations. But I could stay in the sun for 7-8 minutes, and I would have to find the shade. And it's at least triple that now. And before I could never tan. It was either burn or I would look like a fish's belly. And now I can actually get a tan, and that's never happened in my life before, and it's pretty cool. Yep.
I hate when sunburns happen.
Right?
Thank you all for being here. I used to come from a raw vegan world until I knew better. And yesterday marked 3 years keto. So happy about that. Thanks. My question, going back to the sugar thought, my beliefs were I'd rather have my child or myself have sugar because it was natural and my body knew what to do with it. And, I was against the alternatives. Now that we're seeing all these new keto desserts and treats and now being off of sugar, but leaning more into those alternatives, but wanting to kind of get off of those too. I mean, how does the body recognize the alternatives as opposed to what it was doing with sugar, and how can we improve upon that besides just getting off of all of it?
So you guys may or may not know I'm not a big proponent of products. I'm for real food. And so the nomenclature of natural, all natural, can be many things. Cocaine is all natural, right? Rat shit is all natural, right? But I'm not going to eat it or smoke it. And so I think that as keto explodes, which it is doing and is going to continue to do, everybody's trying to make a buck. It's the law of human nature, right? And so these good people up and down the hall out here, I love them all, and I think they have the best of intentions, and I will enjoy their products as an occasional treat, but on a daily basis, I will eat real unprocessed food, mostly meat, and a little veg maybe, and that's where I'll find my best health, and I think we should all use that advice wisely and follow it, because I think that's where good health is. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors had no choice but to eat real food. If I could go back and get my ancestor from 20,000 years ago and bring him down this hall, do you don't think he would tear that stuff up? Totally would, right? But he didn't have a choice. All he had was unprocessed, real one-ingredient foods, so that's what he ate. And so I think by mimicking their diet and the diet that our DNA basically evolved for the last 250,000 years, I think that's probably the ideal strategy.
I think it comes back to intention, the behavior behind why you're wanting something a sweet, like a treat. And I'm all for having these convenience products. I love them for sure. But if I'm doing it to escape or to suppress some type of emotion because I had a bad day or I'm celebrating or it's someone's birthday, it's cool to be able to have a keto treat available versus a white flour and white sugar type of treat. Yeah, it's going to be healthier for you from that perspective, but it's the behavior behind it still that needs to be fixed. A keto cake is still a cake. And if you're rewarding yourself, right, if that's how you see it, then...
I guess, yes, very true. I guess the second part of my question is, once you ingest it, does your body look at the sweetness the same as regular sugar? Are you getting the same reaction? Does the body know, does it compartmentalize sugar differently than an alternative sweetener?
Yeah, so for me specifically, I've tested ketones before and after eating like a keto cupcake or a keto cake. And from a blood ketone level, there's no drop in blood ketone. Like if I ate a regular cupcake with sugar, I would see my ketones go down, my glucose go up. But with a keto treat, I have tested with some keto cookies and keto cupcakes, testing it before and after. I'll see it either stay the same or even go up if there's some MCT oil in that treat. So from that perspective, my ketones are still staying high eating the keto foods. And that's kind of the whole concept of all these keto products is stay in ketosis, and have a cookie. But that doesn't mean you can eat cookies all day, keto cookies all day, and stay in ketosis and lose a ton of weight. Maybe if you reduce your calories, but what I'm saying is it's still the behavior behind it. But I get what you're saying. Does anyone else want to chime in?
So every sweetener is different, and we don't know what they all do, and some of them we know about more than others, and some of them are made out of elements that are more quote-unquote natural than others in the sense that they would be appearing in the body, and others are just ones that we've made in the lab that our body's never seen before. And so you kind of have to consider each on an individual basis, and you have to think about what your goals are. So if your goal is, I need to keep my blood glucose from spiking at all costs, then probably you're going to choose the sweetener over the sugar. If your goal is, but you could have fructose and not have a blood sugar spike. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better for you. You might actually prefer to have glucose and have insulin deal with that for you than to have the fructose go through your liver. So I think it's a really complex question, and there isn't one easy answer.
One person I would recommend you check out is Nick Mailer. He has a post on alternative sweeteners maybe through Nutrita, I think. Yes, through Nutrita. So he has this big write-up. He has lots of citations in there. He thinks very thoroughly about this stuff. And Amber is right that alternative sweeteners are not one thing, so you do have to take them on an individual basis, how you react off of them and whatever. One disclaimer I'll give, I'm probably the outlier here. I don't care how processed something is. I care about the metabolic effects. And until we know that, like Chris has done testing with his ultra hyper processed Keto Chow, and he has posted the results publicly, and I've done testing with it as well. You know, I care about effects, not, you know, natural and whatever. So one thing to consider is I have noticed some people do have issues with an addictive response to sweeteners, and if that's something you're not comfortable with, you definitely have to take that into consideration as well. There you go.
Hey, Jennifer, don't go. After everything being said about, you know, processed foods and fake cakes, I'd like to give you this giveaway Nush cake, blueberry, and thank you for your. Don't eat them all in one day. You got to spread it out. I'm so sorry, but we are out of time. Blame Jennifer. Her question was super good.
I just had a quick one that
Okay.
kind of related to what she was saying.
Okay, you got 3 seconds.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, because we know that sugar creates that same response that cocaine does. We talked about that earlier. Dr. Berry, right? Did that. Because that happens when it hits your mouth. It's not when your body's metabolizing. I'm just wondering, you know, for those of us who have a sugar beast like me, who still likes their sweets, does the erythritol, monk fruit, stevia sweeteners, do those create that same effect?
So here's my question to you. If you eat them, does it perpetuate your desire to keep eating sweet things? Because a lot of people I know never got away from the desire to keep eating sweet things until they just went completely cold turkey on all sweeteners. And that's when they broke the addiction.
It was like that. When I first started doing keto, I wasn't eating any of that stuff because in my naivety, which was a blessing at the time, I really wasn't aware of them. And so I avoided them altogether. But I've noticed as I've incorporated them into my diet over time that I do have that sugar beast that I'm dealing with right now. So I'm working on trying to get that off. I just think that's something that we should be aware of, especially since we've been talking about the sugar addiction.
Yeah, I would just do your own testing, your own blood glucose and blood ketones, because it's very individual. It's very bio-individual, you know, how your body's going to respond to something.
Yeah, I'd go with the rare treat as well. So I used to smoke cigarettes, and I found after giving up many times for over 6 months, being completely clear, as soon as I touched one, I'd be drawn back in again. I largely view this kind of sweet thing in the same light. So I just really try not to do it. And I even avoid the so-called healthier sweet treats just because I feel I'd be drawn back in again. So, but if you can't do it, I'd agree with Siobhan that if you eat the metabolically relatively healthy sweet things, right, that don't have a metabolic response, I'd say it's obviously vastly preferable to the really bad stuff.
Just a quick note, you might want to check out a video regarding addiction Dave actually did. I think he also did a podcast recording on it recently as well, regarding his water-only challenge to break his diet soda addiction. I actually did something similar, but added back in coffee later. Another thing is, yes, if it's causing an addiction response, I wouldn't want it anywhere near me, but that's going to be an individual thing. Regarding the metabolic effects of sweeteners, it's going to depend on which one it is. Nick Mailer cites erythritol as one where he's not really ever seen any evidence of an insulin response, glucose response, nothing. But it's going to vary depending on which one it is and maybe the person. I'm not sure.
All right, thank you. A round of applause for our panel members.
Thank you all for sacrificing your weekends to come and hear us talk.
Well, thank you. All right. I also would like to thank Chris and Miriam Bear, Keto Chow, for setting this up. Also, stand up, this woman right here, my beautiful wife and co-MC, Sandra Ross. Thank you so much. And just a reminder, next year, 17 and 18 of April, will be part 2 of Salt Lake, Keto Salt Lake. Woo! Woo! Sorry, one more. Woohoo!
Hey, and I just wanted to say thank you to all of the volunteers, everyone that came. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Ross. And thank you, Miriam. I love you.
And I just wanted to say thank you to Chris and Miriam for putting this on. It was awesome. Thanks.
Woohoo!